You know, it's true that a lack of motivation can sometimes indicate underlying clinical conditions, such as depression, but it's not exclusively a sign of mental disorder. The concept of avolition, characterized by decreased inclination to initiate and perform goal-directed activities, is indeed a key symptom in certain mood disorders, and conditions that can lead to things such as loss of focus and motivation. So today we're gonna look at not the clinical perspective, but instead we'll look at the possible ways to preserving your motivation. And we'll look at the social perception surrounding introversion and extroversion. Why? Well, there's this prevailing societal sentiment that often paints introverts as being at disadvantage, especially given the extroverts' apparent ease in social situations, such as their ability to attract companionship. This general perception frequently fuels a desire amongst introverts to adopt a more extroverted characteristics, often to such a degree that in the clinical settings, you may even find them seeking guidance to facilitate such transformations, which still puzzles me. What this narrative, however, overlooks is the intrinsic advantage that introverts actually have when it comes to cultivating motivation. And this is the advantage that warrants a more comprehensive analysis that considers various perspectives and implications, contrasting it with the attributes that are typically associated with extroversion. Why would we even look at this? Well, I believe I can actually help you find a way to stop any loss of motivation and to regain control and the ability to remain in the flow, in the zone, so to speak, for as long as you like. So let me start with an example to paint a better picture. So bear with me for a second. In life, we generally have two things. There's vocalization and there is action. Now, when we analyze the impact of verbalizing our experiences, and this is the most obvious thing in trauma, especially when it comes to the impact that it can have on our internal healing. In psychotherapy, we often observe a reduction in the internal grip that trauma can have on people, on their lives. You probably have some personal experience with it yourselves, or you have heard of people. Essentially, the more we vocalize something and lay it bare, as opposed to keeping it within ourselves, the easier it is to experience some sort of relief, some sort of healing. There are cases, for instance, when regression therapy can take you back to your childhood to uncover a source of certain problem, of certain trauma in your life. For instance, there was this one woman who suffered from OCD, and not just a light one. This was like the proper hardcore case where she had to go through a very specific set of actions, and whenever she was somehow prevented from taking those actions, she suffered. She'd be really upset and even worried for the safety of her family. And one day she was urged by her friend to try regression therapy, which she was not very happy about because regression therapy is known for claims of the existence of past lives and other alternative ideas that have never actually been demonstrated, and as such are often abused by people who prey on hope of those that are at need. But she got persuaded, and she went into it with an open mind. Actually, the therapist noticed her apprehension, so she told her to imagine any past life experience as a mere projection of some trauma rather than actual past life. Now, to keep the story short, they uncovered trauma that led them to the negative experience in her childhood, when she was young and her younger sister was just born, and the anger they'd caused it in her to internalize it. And in turn, over the years, this turned into a coping mechanism. Her brain expressed it through OCD. So vocalization, especially in a compassionate, non-judgmental setting, can help people regain control over their emotional state. It's a powerful thing and essentially the basis for psychotherapy everywhere these days. This is what psychotherapy is based on. So why is this important? Well, this stands in stark contrast and direct contrast to the general principles of many spiritual traditions, where internalizing something, let's say positivity, actually leads to positive transformations in your life. And the more someone or some of these are internalized, the more of an impact they can actually have, because any positive change has a cumulative effect that leads to more positive affirmations and so on. Obviously, these sort of spiritual mantras or affirmations only work as long as you abstain from vocalizing them, which is very interesting. So you may be asking, how is this actually related to motivation and preserving it? How is it related to introversion? Well, when I look at it, there's this intriguing discrepancy in the dynamics of motivation that is almost immediately apparent between individuals who vocalize their ambitions and those who silently achieve them instead. This inverse relationship between proclamation and accomplishment is especially visible on social media platforms or in public life. You may have even noticed it in your own personal life. This is exactly where introverts seem to have an advantage, whereby they channel the internalized ideas and thoughts into actions rather than dissipating it through mere speech. You often see people who say they will do this and do that, then they have great plans, and every 5 minutes there's some amazing idea. And if sufficiently extroverted and with some presence of personality, this often is met with applause and admiration from the audience and instant gratification. The problem is that you never really see them to fulfill any of those ideas. This is the difference between people who teach and those who actually do things that some people only teach or only talk about, only vocalize. You know, in psychology, there is this long-standing truth that dates all the way back to Freud, who said that humans can replace action with language. And if you look at public life, social media, or even your own life, this truth is very quickly apparent. And even in simple things such as apology, rather than behaving a certain way, we often don't act, but then turn for help to language, vocalizing and verbalizing our regret through apology of what we could have done. But if we look at it even deeper, we'll notice that both language and action originate from the same source, which highlights a dichotomy between talkers and doers. So let me give you an example from astrophysics. So bear with me. In astrophysics, there is this term called spacetime, which essentially describes the 4 dimensions of our existence. There are the 3 basic spatial dimensions, and then there's time. The whole package is spacetime, which has one very interesting property. The faster you move in certain direction along those spatial dimensions, the slower the time takes, and vice versa. So we could consider space-time to be a single source of energy. So let's imagine a scale. If you have scale, the more energy you borrow from time, the more you can put into movement. But that also means that less energy you have in time, and the slower it'll tick. This is called time dilation. And the same is true for the energy of life. The more you put into vocalizing something into language, the less you have left for actions. The less energy you have to act, the smaller the motivation to do anything. So given this theory, we have to literally scrutinize the frequency of vocalizing intentions against actual accomplishments. And I guarantee you'll start noticing a potential inverse correlation when it comes to this. So what does this actually mean? Well, in simple words, you need to be more like the introverts who are not that keen to vocalize every single thought, every single idea that they have. Practice restraint in vocalizing your goals, especially on social media or in public domain. This doesn't mean advocating for complete silence. Instead, be intentional and purposeful when it comes to your communication, when it comes to vocalizing your thoughts. Imagine that every uttered word has the potential for depletion of your internal motivation. This is why so many people recommend journaling as an effective strategy for expressing thoughts, balanced with revisiting and internalizing written content. Everything is about deliberate intent and content in communication, when you're essentially viewing every conversation as a calculated investment of this combined internal energy. This is why balancing internalization and vocalization is essential in fostering your own motivation. Once you harness this internal energy, allowing it to compound, employing intentional and purposeful speech, it can actually lead you not only to clear mind, greater motivation and better mental health, but also to tangible success in your life. This is why this sort of approach requires embracing silence, letting actions communicate, and observing external responses. So when I say be more introverted, it is because of exactly this. Any deep analysis reveals that introverts, due to their natural propensity to internalize thoughts and goals, excel in maintaining motivation and often driving significant success. I mean, look at Elon Musk, the only guy who's ever built companies past 1 billion in 3 completely unrelated markets, and yet, ignoring his tantrums on X, struggles to vocalize his thoughts at moment's notice. Whenever you see him in an interview, you can almost hear those cogs in his mind working as he's thinking and internalizing the ideas, the questions asked, and thinks about the possible answers. Obviously, this sort of approach doesn't undermine the importance of strategic communication. Vocalizing goals without subsequent action leads to a cycle of seeking external validation without any genuine progress, ultimately undermining your own success. So the remedy is pretty straightforward. Prioritize action over proclamation. Literally, whenever we observe successful introverted individuals, there's a pattern of action-oriented behavior revealed. It's always characterized by diligence and their achievements. Their achievements actually speak for themselves. This is why I think reflection and recalibration of your personal behavior, when necessary, is so pivotal for many. Silence and internal energy can become powerful allies in propelling you forward. Intentionality in sharing and clear goals in conversations and meetings prevent unnecessary depletion of your internal energy and your motivation. Selectivity, strategy, and silence serve on a journey towards success. So if I were to summarize, adopting strategies such as self-reflection, mindfulness, strategic sharing, boundary setting, action prioritization, maintaining physical and mental health, lifelong learning, practicing gratitude, visualizing success, aligning with core values, and seeking inspiration can significantly amplify your personal motivation and thus your success. Recognizing and maintaining this delicate balance while being mindful of your energy allocation is vital. Success does not lie in the noise that you create, but in the impactful and intentional actions that you undertake.